I was trying to be a little, add a little hook to this talk about the study in religious non-affiliating people or population. That's a mouthful. So you call them, the designated term is nuns, uh, and which can be confusing because it sounds like you're talking about women in a holy order, and that's not what it is. Or maybe that's the attraction of it. I think I wanted to say, well, first, thank you, Reedwood, for allowing me the freedom to explore this subject. It's always kind of been very near and dear to me to be around people that don't think like me, don't believe like me. I like people that are different, and to understand where people are coming from, especially people that may be my age or a little older, a little younger, and they're just not where I'm at in life. I've always just enjoyed conversation and friendship with people that look at the world differently, and look at the world in a way that is, you know, different but authentic and real and that sort of thing. As we'll see later on in my presentation here, Portland has a particularly and notably high concentration of nuns, of people that don't affiliate with any sort of religious belief system, but that doesn't mean they're not spiritual people. It doesn't mean that they don't pray. They do pray. But as far as connecting to a religious identity, as far as connecting and kind of aligning oneself with a particular belief system, they say, no, thanks. That's not me. So I wanted to open up with just a story here that happened to me recently. Two recent memorials that I went to in Ohio, and I was reminded of what I'm studying here by what I encountered here at these memorials in Ohio. So two friends of mine unexpectedly passed away. Young, one was a couple years older than me, and one was about 10 years younger than me. And so because I felt really, there was a time and place where I saw these people a lot, and I had felt indebted to the community that they were a part of and that they represented. So I wanted to kind of be there and show up as a form of presence, as a form of seeing people again that I hadn't seen in 20 years. Some of them I hadn't seen in 30 years. And so I wanted to just kind of be there again, just show up, not as just Mark. I don't want to be Pastor Mark. I just want to be Mark with these people. That's how they knew me. And so I was surprised at both of these gatherings. The one gathering for the younger person was at a pizza shop, just a gathering of friends. And as I got to talk to the person who passed, who has a twin brother, as I was talking to them about, well, what happened? What's the plan? Is there a church involved or anything like that? Or is there, last rites essentially? And no. Jason is being cremated. That's it. And I thought I was surprised at that, like, oh, wow, okay. And I was subtly hinting like, well, if you need anything, I'm here. But that offer wasn't taken up. 2 days later, I had the second gathering at a pool hall in Canton, Ohio. And that's where this person loved to go. They loved to play pool. And so I remember going in there and seeing people that I wasn't sure if I knew them, because I was like kind of side-eyeing them of like, I hadn't seen these people in 30 years. Do they know do they know who I am? I recognized some people, and other people I just didn't recognize at all. And there was that same question kind of hanging in the air of what happened. People were kind of waiting for some sort of a public announcement about the loss of our friend. And that never came. That never happened. It was just everybody get together, have a good time. Our friend died. And there was no acknowledgement of, was he affiliated with a church or a spiritual tradition or anything like that? And there was none. So it dawned on me, oh, I better get used to this. This is going to be normal. Of people, when they pass, there's not a religious acknowledgement. There's not a system of acknowledgement for people when they pass away. And I thought, that is really interesting. Just as a sociological and psychological phenomenon, not even spiritually speaking, sociologically, there was no ritual. The ritual was play pool and have a good time, but we're not going to really talk about the person we've gathered around. I was really surprised and taken aback by that.
That sounds strange in Ohio.
In Ohio, yeah. Yeah, in Ohio. Thank you. And you're welcome to kind of give back and forth. This doesn't have to be a
Yeah. Not really want to talk about death.
There is, but there was no moment where there was a public statement of mourning that our friend is no longer here, and then go and have a beer and play pool and have a good time. That wasn't there, and you could just feel it hanging in the air from person to person that I was talking to. What happened? I can't believe this. I can't believe this happened. I can't believe we're not going to hear his laugh again and see our friend around. And so it really was kind of this kind of strange environment to be in. And for that to happen twice in one weekend, for me, was just a new way of living, a new way of kind of seeing how a life cycle ends. Part of that is I followed up with the twin brother of the first friend, and I said, where was Jason at religiously? They grew up in the evangelical tradition. I said, where were they at, in terms of faith? I'm asking for the sake of just my research and that sort of thing. This isn't like judgment or anything. And they said, well, Jason in his later years became a vehement and outspoken atheist in his last years. I said, oh, okay. Given some of the difficulties that I knew that he lived through, that's understandable, that there was a major deconstruction of any sort of faith identity and that sort of thing. I offered my kind of more universalist words of optimism, back to the brother, but still, my heart aches for my friend that he didn't have a spiritual community for the more complex times of his life. That the only thing that the direction that they went was through faith deconstruction, and a number of people that I went to Bible school with and that sort of thing have done that. They have completely deconstructed faith, and that's just not who they are anymore, which is fine. People evolve. Faith, I think, needs to evolve. It needs room to grow. But That's the way it was done there in Ohio.
Oh, oh.
Mhm.
Can you briefly describe what it would have been like, the same situation 30 years ago, you were in that community? What would have happened 30 years ago if someone unexpectedly died? Typically. You know,
I suppose the same thing that happened last month could have happened 30 years ago. But I think there would have been more of a maybe a tighter adherence of a faith community, some sort of a faith community that would have been involved, especially a faith community that you grew up in. Both brothers have actually have left that. That's just the way it is. For the first person, my relationship was based from a youth ministry, volunteer youth ministry position that I was involved in. The second person, lovable, everybody loved him. I never got the impression that there was a faith background, but I mean, I don't really know about that. So I wanted a little bit of interaction here. And we're going to try to use the dry erase board here I'll ask you about, to take a moment to think about, and I'll write down, what are a few sources of your own faith story? Where did your faith come from? Everyone can say, well, God. Well, yeah, but like, what is the context? Where did you catch it? Where was it passed on to you? What were some key factors in your own faith formation? What were some key factors? And who were some important religious influences in your life? And then I was just gonna kind of fill up this dry erase board with, or try to fill up, with those answers to those questions. Sources of your own faith stories, key factors in your faith formation, and important religious influences for you. And this is just kind of popcorn style. If no one speaks in a little bit, I'll just start calling on names.
go on. All right, because I came from an atheist family.
All right.
I grew up in a family where we're not allowed to say a single word that alluded to religion or to mortality or sickness. So my parents were both alcoholics, and they were both vocally anti-church. They said church is for weak people and hypocrites. So that was the attitude.
Weak people and who? Hypocrites. Oh, huh?
But my grandmother was the mothering person in my story. When I was 4 years old in Germany, she was teaching me how to tie my shoelaces and talking to me about the Good Shepherd. And all of that sort of stuck in my heart, but it vanished for many years until it's resurfaced. In high school, when I picked up a copy of the New English Bible, the new translation, and started reading Acts and realized this stuff was really hot. But I had to hide that from my parents. That step in my life. Later on, I became a Christian, but that was as an adult. My childhood, I identified with my anti-church family. So I really credit those words of my grandmother, with whom I was living. My parents were back in the US, and I was in Germany. I credit my grandmother with planting that seed that I didn't even know was still there until much later.
Do you think your exploration and curiosity about Christianity and faith and Bible, was that a form of defiance?
Yes, it was a form of defiance. Yeah. My mother disinherited me. She took me out of the family trust because of that stuff that I did. So there was an element of defiance. That was me being a rebel, becoming a Christian.
That is so interesting. It is really interesting. Thank you. Anything else? Sources of your own faith story, key factors of your faith formation, important religious influences. Doug?
Mother and father taught me quite well. Cause I always went to church with them all the time. So I learned quite a bit from them. And when I was in school, I didn't do very good. I had to teach myself to read the Bible more than anything else. But I had to ask the Lord, the Spirit of the Lord, to help me read the Bible. I was kind of a little bit illiterate. So I keep reading that Bible every single day. Twice a day, morning and night, before I get up or go to bed.
Mhm.
Well, that's what my mother and father always took us kids to church. So I learned quite a bit from that.
Oh. Set of peers. So as a family faith tradition, your own faith experiences, and then peers influence, yeah. Judy.
When I was in college, I had a part-time job, taking care of a woman who was in her eighties. As her cook said, she didn't have no family to put her in the home. And so she hired college kids to help take care of her, live with her and stuff. And she was kind of lonely. And there was one woman, a professor's wife, who would come and just talk to her. And it made her so happy. And I realized she was doing that. The professor's wife was doing that as her sort of, she shouldn't do leave, but it wasn't performing, nobody knew about it. And she was Quaker, so I decided to check it out.
This happened at work.
Yeah, my part-time job.
So, yeah. Relationship. Anything else? Elizabeth is holding this.
I have a similar path than him. Sorry for the name.
Jude.
Yeah. A similar path. My grandma, my paternal grandma, because my maternal grandma is Christian. I mean, this is Catholic. But my paternal grandma, the person is, and she passed away a few years ago. She raised me from when my mom came from United States. I stayed behind with her. But she got up in Catholic school, but at the same time, she was an atheist. She didn't believe. And before that time, I believe I was involved in the church. I didn't believe because I believe her. I believe what she said. No, oh, I just believe in what I see.
Wow.
I didn't get introduced to church again. As I came to United States 20 years ago. In the beginning, instead of rebelling and going to church, I was rebelling against going to church.
Yeah.
After the first few Sundays, the first few months of coming here, I didn't want to go. That was before was a fire. Because there was over fire after eventually. I started understanding. Now it's the other way. Now I'm coming. My mom is. My mom and my sister are not going to church anymore. It's like the best thing.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Sarah, I'm a visitor,
Hi, Sarah.
but I grew up in the OPC, which is the Orthodox Presbyterian Church. And they're very strict about things with, especially women preaching. So I, you know, kind of wrestled with that for a few years. But I always felt like I was an in-betweener. So I felt I was too religious for like the worldly circles, but too worldly for the religious, like homeschool circles. But my aunt and my uncle, their brother and sister, really helped inspire my questions about faith. And I like to read, so C.S. Lewis, Richard Foster, and a few others have really influenced me in the development of what I really believe about faith.
Kind of like start with our family, but then we started getting our own answers for ourselves, because that's how we were raised. Those are great authors too. Just wondering, from there, do you have any like relatives or friends that don't affiliate with religion or anything like that? And have you asked them why not? Have you like kind of entered into a conversation about, well, why do they not affiliate with any sort of religion or any sort of faith tradition or anything like that? And I would be interested in hearing some feedback, what you've heard, some of their responses of why there's not a faith affiliation in their life. Zaja?
That they have this sort of spirituality, some sort of religious upbringing or connection. And that is not a question I've ever asked anybody. Do you have a church home, a religion, affiliation? It's not something, because people are now, they just seem well adjusted. Okay, but I mean, that surface, I don't know what's deeper. That's a good question.
Yeah, I don't ask because I feel like they might think I'm trying to push mine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because there's so much of that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Almost. When you start asking about faith, there is a sense of kind of that the old evangelical approach of, hey, why does this person want to know about my faith, and that sort of thing. I would hope that sometimes the faith talks with people are a little bit more organic and less forced, just talking about what is ultimate reality, what does this philosophy or that philosophy have to say about religion, God, the ground of being, those sorts of things. Anybody else respond to friends and family that don't affiliate with the religious group? Right.
Well, early on in my journey in the church judged people. You got divorced,
yeah.
and we're out, and a lot of those people never came back.
Mhm.
Or if you were, your gender identity was wrong, gay, you drank or smoked.
Yeah.
A lot of those people just got beat up by the church. Never came back.
And I suppose the kids would.
Right, that's the legacy of that is just. I have a friend who was a sailor. That is a US naval sailor, and then became a communist and was surprised by becoming converted, and he's now a pastor. But and his son grew up in the church that he was pastoring. And he said, you know, the difference between you and me, Dad, is that you still maintain a connection with the world because you came from a world and you're acutely aware of that world. I, on the other hand, only associate with other people in the church. And he didn't say that as a matter of pride. He just said it was making an observation that his father found was a very interesting observation because it's true. The church is composed of people who are former addicts, former prostitutes, and also a superintendent of schools. Interesting church. But it's a church that's very aware that there's a world outside that doesn't really have the time of day for religion. But the son is completely in the system and realizes it, doesn't have those relationships that his father has. I also wanted to mention the book Michael Simpson's Permission Evangelism, which 20 years ago I think I talked about here. Mission evangelism basically says the best evangelism is awaiting permission to talk about spiritual subjects, remain sensitive to that opportunity, but not crossing that line until permission is given.
Yeah.
Interesting book.
We've just experienced the opposite where 20-somethings and maybe early 30-somethings are actually inviting us to talk about spirituality on a very different level. But wow, it's great, but yeah.
I find that people that I end up being around because of Megan, because Megan knows all sorts of people, that they want to know what I do and what I believe. And I also remember Brenna and Lachlan, their experience at high school is like none of their friends ever had anything to do with church, and they couldn't figure out, well, how's their dad a priest and how did he have kids?
I've been in Spain.
So there's like all this kind of like misinformation, out there. Biology.
Judy, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Since you go to England twice a year, my understanding is religion's kind of down a lot in England. Do you find that?
Yeah, it's like the same church problem like all over, but still, the 20-somethings were seeking us out there, and
That was happening in England.
that was happening in England.
Is there resurgence? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
resurgence.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to watch a video of some folks that would be kind of categorized under this label of nuns, and what they're saying, they have a spirituality, they have a way of seeing the world and seeing things, but as far as statistics and that sort of thing, they're kind of on their own their own area. Let's see here. I hope that that about 6 minutes here.
I got confirmed and then I never went to church again.
Not an atheist. An anti-theist.
We grew up secular. We had no religion.
When asked my religious beliefs,
this was my church.
I'm a lesbian. So that was kind of like, oh, I didn't really fit.
So I am an atheist.
I probably am still agnostic.
But I don't really like the term.
In 1972, only 5% of Americans identified as atheist, agnostic, or nothing in particular. Today, it's 30% of Americans identify as nuns, and amongst the youngest adult Americans, over 45% of Americans identify as non-religious. We have 3 types of nuns. Atheists, who are the ones who say God does not exist. Agnostics are people who say that we can't know if God exists or not. And then a third group is called nothing in particular. And this group is actually the fastest growing religious group in America today.
Well, I was raised Catholic on a dairy farm in Germany's Lower Rhine Valley. Really, the life-changing moment was when my best childhood friend died of cancer at 15. It was a very difficult experience, and I did not find any answers. Like, my parents couldn't say anything, what happens after we die. Church only presents heaven and hell. In the beginning, I was totally self-taught and studied from books, and everything clicked right away. I want to create experiences for people where they connect, first of all, to themselves in a deeper level, but then also to the world around them. And that, for me, is really living spirituality.
That's essentially what meditation has provided me with, is an intimacy with the self and a closeness to nature, to God.
Coming at it from like not being raised in any religious institution, I find a lot of joy in religions because like they haven't indoctrinated me, they haven't harmed me, they haven't informed me. Like I'm ignorant on all of them. So I get to come into religions with like this excitement, like curiosity.
Meditation during COVID.
Nothing in particulars are definitely less religious than Catholics or Protestants or Jews, but they're a whole lot more religious than atheists or agnostics are.
Hands on the tablecloth, please. Thank you.
The most attractive things of religion and churches is the community.
But for almost 6 years, I dated.
So to compete with that, we need to have our community of like-minded people.
The idea of religious faith, which I'm going to define as to accept something, to believe something for which there is no evidence, is literally the root of most of the ills in the world and society.
I think it's just no longer relevant. I mean, that's what you really find with the people that are non-verts. It's not that they believe, or they may believe, but you know, it's inconvenient to go to church, it's inconvenient to do it, so they just don't. And there's no reason why they should if they have better things to do.
People that are the nuns shouldn't be thought of all as religion haters, because I have great respect for a lot of religious leaders, almost like there's something transcendent in humans. And that gives rise to the best in humans and also to the best in religion.
Dear Lord, we are thankful and grateful that we can come to this place with these people and worship you together on this Sabbath morning as we've been doing for so many decades. When I see the line graph pointing downwards, it's not just a line graph, it's what I've seen every single Sunday of my life. The last 16 years is went from 50 to 40 to 30 to 20 to 10. This is not just some academic exercise for me. This is my life. Nothing in particular we classify them as non-religious, which means they've gotten rid of religion. They've cast off a Protestant or Catholic belief, or they're not Buddhist or Hindu, but they haven't really embraced any other kind of understanding about anything.
I'm not involved in any kind of religious group whatsoever. I'm involved in being a decent human being to the people I meet. I grew up Catholic. Yeah, that was the deal. Went to Mass every Sunday. In Southern California, I was headed to the beach with my guitar, and my father would say, "What are you doing with that guitar?" I said, "Well, I'm going to go meet some friends after Mass." But I skipped Mass and just went straight to the beach, played my guitar on the beach, watched the waves. It felt more spiritual than any time I set foot in a church. Here's a song I wrote for Oliver, the Bassettown. Have your slipper than the evening news, but you can't have a Bassettown in the blues. I find religion structure is a little bit stifling. And as we all know, there's been a lot of evil that's been brought out. Catholic Church, the Southern Baptist Church, harming human beings, innocent human beings. And I can't buy into that.
Those trend lines are continuing in such a way that it's a very good possibility in the next 30 or 40 years there will be more non-religious Americans than there will be Christians in the United States for the first time in American history.
What were some of the things you noticed about the people in the video?
Most of them white.
White. Yeah. What else?
Angry.
What's that?
Angry and wounded.
Okay. Angry, wounded. Some of them.
Some of them.
Yeah. I want to be friends with most of them. They seem like really interesting people. Like just really cool. Josh.
I was just gonna say, one talked about the teacher and the whole meditation thing without nature, so you're
Yeah.
connected.
Yeah.
I think it's significant that most students said they grew up in some sort of religious.
Yeah. So you grew up and then deconstructed and stuff like that.
The first paragraph, that is sad. Yeah,
What was that?
the first paragraph. The pastor refused to visit her husband because he had not been involved in church.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that will throw somebody out right there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Did you relate to anything in the video? Oh, that's me.
I did relate to the young woman who said, I haven't even tasted it, I haven't been. I really should. People we spoke to in England and here, were like that, said almost exactly. Yeah. I was never dragged to church, I was never, so, but here I am thinking, is this all there is?
I want to do, we're ready to move on here. Oh, yeah. Want to move on from the video with, and have some definitions of terms. What is it that we're talking about? We could do the definitions of terms slide there first. There we go. Nuns is short for religiously non-affiliating, or nun. When asked what religious groups they were a member with or which they identify. Switch back for you there.
And then sums, they kind of, you have nuns, sums, duns, there's that alliteration that they like to play with. And those who stay connected to religious institutions but stay on the sidelines, sometimes attending church. Church attendance is compared to bringing out the nice dishes. It's kind of like once or twice a year you bring out the nice dishes, then you put it back in the curio cabinet. Sums would treat religion and kind of church attendance in that way. You have your SBNRs, spiritual but not religious folks. Think of themselves as spiritual, or they consider spirituality very important for their lives, which I think there's a lot of people in this section. They're spiritual, but they don't want it defined by an institution or an outside group. But they neither think of themselves as religious, nor they say religion is very important for their lives. So there's a bifurcation between spirituality, their idea of spirituality, and what religion is. And they would say no to religion, yes to spirituality. But as far as definition, institutions, faith traditions defining that spirituality. No thanks, I'm going to do that on my own. Next slide. And just other definitions of terms, the differences between, okay, what is an atheist, what is an agnostic? Also, a footnote on atheism, rejection. I've had people, their hardship in life has brought them to atheism, where at one time they thought there was a loving, caring God, but life became so painful that vision was shed, and the kind of the embracing of atheism. There is no God. A person who doesn't believe in the existence of God or any gods, one who subscribes to and advocates atheism. Did you see that one guy? He was an anti-theist, not an atheist, but he was anti-theist because of the history of religion and the damage and harm that it's caused throughout human history. Agnostic is a person who holds a view that any ultimate reality, such as a supreme being, is unknown and probably unknowable. That's not kind of in the ability for the human being. Broadly, it's one who is committed to believing in either the existence or non-existence of God or any gods. And oftentimes you'll see atheist and agnostic coupled together. They appear in the same contexts. Atheist refers to someone who does not believe. Agnostic has two relevant meanings. It can refer to someone who holds the view that any ultimate reality is unknown or probably unknowable. Sometimes we talk in these terms and we assume that everyone knows these familiar terms of what we're talking about, but we want to just have a reminder there. Some statistics here. Next slide. Stats on atheism, agnosticism, and nothing in particulars. Wherever we find statistics of nuns, whether it's Portland, whether it's across the United States, the majority is nothing in particular. Atheist, agnostic, there's smaller populations. So this does not necessarily comprise the entire population of the United States. Public opinion surveys, people who answer a question about their religion are saying they're atheist or agnostic or nothing in particular, combined into a category called religiously unaffiliated. So nuns are part of the religiously unaffiliated subcategory. Now widely known as nuns, scholars of religion in the US have used this term since the 1960s, and it's grown in social scientific journals, use in scientific journals and the media. So people are interested in tracking what is religion doing in the United States, and by and large, traditional institutions are saying it's just been on a steady decline. There's not been an up spike here recently. And next slide. Who are they? According to, this is more of a US Census data from a 2015 national survey. As I've looked into other census data and surveys, while this seems kind of old, this is the data that keeps coming up. And the number keeps bouncing around anywhere from down from 20%, and on that video they said up to 30%, which I think is a little over the mark. But we can find a median, a middle of the road number, probably around 24% and a national survey of America's changing religious landscape. 24% of US citizens have no religious affiliation. So a quarter out of 100 people would say I'm either agnostic, atheist, or I don't affiliate with any religion. That doesn't mean that doesn't mean they're not spiritual. That doesn't mean that they don't see themselves as spiritual. They just don't connect with any sort of religious tradition. Census data from 07 and 14 says the rise in number across the U.S. is not, and that this is a way of seeing it, that this is a phenomenon that's not just on the outliers states, California, Washington, and Oregon, but we're seeing nuns all over the United States. So it's not just in concentrated areas. Although the Pacific Northwest is commonly known as the nun zone. So we live in the nun zone. Primarily men, women, and primarily white. That was what you noticed there, David, about that video. Primarily nuns are and religious and non-affiliated are whites. Taken into consideration other statistics, but 68% down from 73% in 2007. What I'm really interested in would be after the pandemic and after the Trump administration, with what that's doing, what this number is doing now. That's going to be interesting in coming census data. Asian, Black, Latina, nationally, they're in the single to lower double digits. And across the United States, the basic demographic would be a nun is female between the ages of 30 and 49, white, high school graduate, and makes below $30,000 a year. That's your typical person that would fall in this category of a religious nun. Yeah.
Right. Yes, that's not smart.
Yeah.
We're talking here about the church, religion, but isn't there a broader phenomenon? I know that the Rotary is having trouble getting people in, the Elks are down, the Loose, the Gophers, whatever. I mean, the commitment to institutions in general is going to pot.
Oh, like following.
People are not volunteering, people are not attending. So it's not just the church that's losing people. Institutions losing.
I would say traditional institutions. I think people are still plugging in with community. It may be a little bit more niche now. I'm amazed at any time, like I'll go to watch Laughlin's baseball games, and I'm amazed at like frisbee golf clubs and the groups of people that this is just my opinion and my experience. The amounts of people, what I see that gather with their dogs or that gather for a game. And, it's not a church group, it's just a community group. I think what we have been seeing is traditional institutions membership is suffering. And while there's likely a lull in general community commitment with people, people are still getting together. They're just not getting together at the traditional spots, such as churches, Elks, Moose, Gopher, Beaver. Even colleges, higher education. You don't go to school anymore. Yeah. Like you don't have to. You don't have to when, like my one friend, he's a YouTube influencer. He makes in 1 month what I make in 6 months on his own content. He is the content, and it's just like I hope you're saving that, because what, like,
Yeah.
I'm sure this is a short-term thing. You're in a sweet spot right now, unless you can constantly reinvent yourself. No.
Does anyone know what's happening with 12-step groups? AA and groups like that?
Sure. Sure. Nice. David.
And maybe this is premature to ask this. Since the religion based on stories, these are from different categories, environmentalists over time. And it seems almost the transition, we're moving away from these traditional forms, maybe of a form of cultural natural selection, what's proving advantageous. So you just gave us a sort of a myriad of options that people are, exploring. And we also know across the board, there's this tradition, shift away from these traditional legacy programs. So I'm coming back to you with, as you gather all this information and as you project forward, say for the Quakers, how would you address this growing need in terms of continuing, as opposed to experiencing a person who's having the atrophy in his group? How would you think you might address this growing need in order to keep the arms wide for the congregation to grow here?
I think the rest of my
presentation will answer some of that. And if the rest of my presentation doesn't answer that, we can return there. I do want to go on to the next slide here, and how and where are nuns connecting? And there's kind of the 4 F's of contemporary spirituality: family, Fido, friends, and food. That's where people are connecting. Taken together, these are the most important priorities for both nuns and sums. The experience of the spiritual and everyday life feels more authentic for many nuns. This routine experience of the spiritual tends to sharpen the distinction between religion and spirituality, that it is not prevalent in the wider culture. Bracketing the religious out of the spiritual is by no means unproblematic for nuns or for scholars of religion. So, the way the key is turning is, for nuns, there is a spirituality, and it's more immediate, and it's not based on ritual. It's not based on going to church, and it's not based on liturgy. It's based on your lived life experience and seeing God and spirituality, what's in front of you, what's before you. So yeah, I had to find a picture for that. These are the values that really are not so different than the values of what we would honor today: family, creation, Fido, friends, and food. These are the kind of the centering points and the gathering points for folks. Next slide. Now, nuns redefine their I like this because they're taking the initiative of redefining what's important, what is spiritual and spiritually meaningful, and primarily it's relationships. They would say, instead of individualistic or institutional connectedness, they would just say the friends and family. That's where there is that is where their spirituality is. A feeling of most connected is to be found and experienced. They're embedded in experiences of locale, everyday life. Secular and sacred lines are now blurred. There's not the sacred space where, don't cuss, and here's the secular space where you can talk like a sailor. Those lines are blurred anymore. Everything is able to be a place of spirituality and meaning. It's embodied, sensate, and social instead of cognitive, private, and interiorized. So it's not so much of, do I have the right doctrine in the way I think? Do I have the right dogma down? That's how I know that I have the right spirituality. It's going to be more of a, well, how are you living? How are you connecting with others? How are you treating other people? It's dynamic over time while remaining coherent within identity narratives. So if you go through a divorce, so if you transition from male to female, wherever direction your life goes, there's a flexibility in your spiritual journey. You're not breaking rules or anything like that. There's a present spirituality that can be drawn from. It's understood as transformational, highlighting personal growth and communal, or it involves social change. So I think, we have a lot of protests here in Portland and that sort of thing. I think people that attend protests and that's kind of their passion, they would see that as that is our spirituality. It's a form of spirituality. They may not put it that way, but it's giving them a sense of purpose, a sense of meaning. It's communal. It involves their kind of personal story. So seeing that as a spiritual practice. Yeah, Judy?
Isn't this an invitation for the society? Don't go there.
All of this is there isn't a whole lot of there is not a big degree of difference over what people are already doing and wanting with what the values of our spiritual tradition already point to. It may just be a little bit difference in language, and finally, they highlight experiences of authenticity and connectedness in the present moment rather than future-oriented expectations. The old idea of, well, I go to church so I can go to heaven when I die. So I have enough to be cynical. So I have enough capital on God to say, God, you let me in because of what I've done. So I'm living now as a payout for eternity. That way of thinking is just out the door. They just say that is meaningless. That is absolutely meaningless. And they would say, salvation, afterlife, that's not even really important right now. It's connection to your relationships, what you do, and how authentically you're allowed to be you while you're doing it. That's the rub. It's not what you think. It's not what you think theologically. It's not what you think dogmatically. That's all secondary. It's all about living authentically in the present moment, in relation to and in connection with your community. That's spirituality. That's what matters most. Now, again, there isn't a whole lot. There's a lot there. I agree overwhelmingly with a lot of these values and statements. So the next slide, please. What's none got to do with it? I wrote that in the voice of Tina Turner. Locally, statistically, kind of a lot, especially here. Remember on that video that pastor was like, before long, there's going to be more nuns than there are Christians in the United States. He's saying that in Birmingham. That's already our present, that's our present situation already in Portland. 44% are religiously unaffiliated in Portland, Vancouver. This came out in 24. So yeah, 23, 24. So this is already 2 years old. I imagine we can safely assume that it could be more. But we're already at that point. Almost half of Portlanders are unaffiliated. Those are there are other statistics. Christian is 42%. Other religions are 13%. I tried to drop these down. You can look this up at this website. You can drop these down. I was trying to see if there was Quaker, and I didn't see Quaker, but I would guess that we're at a smaller percentage there. Yeah, Doug?
I'm shocked. I mean, so I've been living here in Portland since 2018, and I heard that we were non-religious. So 42% are.
That's hard.
What?
Yeah, that's what I've been thinking. It's like exaggerated. Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
This is what the data has come back with, how people reflect that, embody that,
Live that is another thing, at least on the research data. Next slide. Yeah. 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 I like that quote. Change brings opportunity. What is the opportunity here with this milieu and this kind of sociological phenomenon? I think we would do well, and we try to hold this well here at Reedwood. I think it's okay to pat ourselves on the back. Curiosity, conversation, and care. Nuns are not generally, they're not looking for an institutional belief affiliation, so don't try. You should come to, it's okay to say you can come to church, but they're not looking to join. They're not looking to align, usually, with anything that is predetermined. But there is an openness and a curiosity about learning, even practicing some beliefs. So for Simple Silence, we have everything from Christian to some Buddhist to some atheist to some, we have a whole kind of trail mix there meeting at Simple Silence of where people are at belief-wise, but we're coming together and we're sharing an experience of silence together, and we're getting something deep out of it. And I just love that. We're not there to convince people to become Quakers or Christian. We're saying stay with what you are, but we just want to be together. Let's be together in a state of, in this kind of, celebrate our diversity, celebrate what we can do together. And this experience, this cooperative experience together. What came out of that experience? I always try to say that. What was that like for you? What came out of that? And it's lovely to hear what people have to share and say. And yeah, that's my approach for Quakers. We love silence. We can share our approach and methods to spiritual practice with nuns, with atheists, with agnostics. That's the great thing. You don't have to sign the dotted line on a confession of faith or liturgy, but you can just enter into it and practice it. It's a way for us to show up. Conversation. Ask the question of what people believe. Don't be afraid to be respectfully curious. And maybe that's what you could preface it as. I'm really curious. What did you grow up as, in belief? In order to learn not to judge or change, convert. Just curious. What do people believe? And then the universal language, care for people. The substance of what you say you are is communicated universally by what you do, especially towards people in times of need. There are opportunities to care for others, where they're at and what they're doing. One last slide here. Would Jesus have been a nun? I wanted to read a paragraph, if you can bear with me, on this person named George being interviewed and what he said about being none and what he viewed the life of Jesus of Nazareth and what that was doing. This is George, this person being interviewed by Elizabeth Drescher in the book Choosing Our Religion. George says, look, I'm not trying to be dishonest about what I believe. I believe in God. I believe Jesus was his son, that he was a promised Messiah. I believe in the Holy Spirit and all that creedal stuff that Christians mostly believe. And as a family, we do lots of things that Christians do, or at least they're supposed to do, caring for the poor and the environment and trying to heal racial and religious divisions. But you know, Jews do a lot of that work too. Buddhists, Muslims, atheists even, I would guess. The way I do it, what inspires me and motivates me and gives me encouragement, is by trying to follow the Jesus I met in the Gospels. That guy specifically. And I just feel like that got lost in the church. I got smothered by Christian fundamentalists and twisted so much that it is no wonder that people think Christians are crazy, hate-filled, brain-dead extremists. But the thing is, Jesus wasn't a Christian. Jesus was, you think I'm going to say Jew, because that's the family and culture he was born into. But I really think Jesus was a nun. He was walking away from that, tearing down the temple to build up the kingdom. That's not an institution focused on getting members, keeping members, boosting ties. That's a way of life based on genuine love. That's what we want our kids to understand, that they don't have to belong to a church or call themselves a particular thing to try to love people the way Jesus did. You break bread with people, you share stories, you help each other out. The writer says, Jesus was a nun, quote, end quote. I said to George as we walked to the parking lot, now that's a bumper sticker for you. And just something to think about as a concluding thought. What we're saying is nuns are kind of like these refugees, sometimes refugees from churches that break away, but there's a retained spirituality that wants connection, that wants to serve, that wants to do the things that we here at the church say also can all agree on, that is that these are good things. And there's a whole lot of them that live in Portland, Oregon. And how can Reedwood connect with people at that level where they are, and to integrate that into some of our practices in our time. I also loved this icon of Pantocrator in black and brown by Brian Beam. I thought that was absolutely beautiful of this vision of Christ. Next slide. Questions, comments, or clarifications? Anything? Carol.
There's anecdotal by some Catholic leaders that Catholicism is growing right now. People are trying to come back to the Catholic Church. Have you heard about that?
I have. Yeah.
The high church, Catholic, Episcopalian, Orthodox, there is an uptick. Let's see if it continues.
Run a little ritual in.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's and how the people that are connecting in that way are younger to middle-aged white male.
They what?
They like the new.
They like the new Pope a lot.
Yeah.
I like that too.
Yeah.
Any other question?
I don't know. I don't know if I'd like to frame it in a question, but Dwight got me thinking when he said it's not just churches, it's the other institutions too. And when you asked about what do you see in common with these people, my first uncharitable impression is that they're clutching at straws. It's almost a sense of desperation. They're looking for something. And I feel like there's a mystery just because we're here. Why are we here? Why is there something? What happens after we die? Why are we conscious? We can't answer any of these questions, and nobody knows the answers. And these institutions, the common institutions that we have, those were frameworks where we thought we had answers. And I think all of them have oversold the answers. It's like they say, we know the answers, and none of them do, and none of them can. And so I think, I used to remember saying the Pledge of Allegiance in school and being proud of America as someone who would help our friends. And then, come to find out, a recent president is saying, "Oh, you think we're not killers?" And so there's this, our sources of information are varied now, and the myths we told ourselves about America, absolutely worth, ideals worth dying for. But we've done slavery, we've done all these things, and I guess Winston Churchill used to say you could count on Americans to do the right thing after they run out of options. But
I thought it was another bumper sticker.
But it's that overselling of the answers, and it's like we were told if you went to college you'd get a better job, and that doesn't work anymore. And we're told if you go to work and you're loyal to your employer that's going to pay off. You'll get a gold watch and you'll be able to retire. And that's not working. And none of these things, none of these promises that were made to us are working. And church is, when you die, you're going to go to heaven. I remember we were talking at the men's group about cultural things like when you become a man, how do you tell now? And these institutions used to tell us how to be a man, or how to be honest, or how to treat other people. And then, it doesn't work. So to see these people step back and look for the authentic, I think that's the secret. We don't want a myth. We don't want rules that everyone follows and that's the way to be. We want something that works for us individually. And I think that's, I think one of the nice things, and then there's that human nature. Once you have these rules, you need to fit in and be like everyone else. And so there's the tribes, there's the families, there's not just follow these rules, but you have to have signals that show who you are. And if you're not one of us, then you're not, so there's all that kind of crap. So the thing about Reedwood is I've noticed people of all kinds of ideas can come here, share their ideas, and I haven't seen anyone be excluded. And so it's like a collective search for authenticity, and I think that's instructional. And I don't know what I was trying to say.
How can you be authentic if you don't know who you are? Like, what I mean? I see all these people saying, "Oh, I want to be authentic. I want to be authentic." Yeah. And authentic at what? Or what if authentic is violent? Or, like, and anger is an authentic emotion, and it's it's a real emotion. It's one that deserves to even be expressed, but like that can go places. Yeah.
And maybe that's why community is so important.
Yeah.
Is because you have the wisdom of the crowd to help guide you. But yeah, I don't know.
But also the community can allow you to get that anchor out and then start and you can go on to have something beyond anchor. Not just always living.
I would say part of the
choice, part of the kind of like the underlying narrative that a lot of nuns and religious non-affiliating people are following. They are following a religious charge that is inherent within religion, and that charge is leave home, leave where you're comfortable, leave where you know who you are, and lose yourself so that you can find yourself. I think that's what's happening. And that's the liberation, and that's the joy behind, that's why they keep doing it. You know, of
The kids to tell them.
what's that?
That's what kids tell their parents.
Well,
Not my kid, no.
yeah. I think as adults, there is the spiritual call within religion that says, if you lose your life, you will find your life. Those are the words of Jesus. Jesus says, lose your life for my sake, so that you may be found. And I think people just instinctively and intuitively are still engaging in that way of doing life. That's in relation to what you were saying, Scott. But also kind of seeing religion not as just adherence to a creed or a liturgy to say this is truth and this is where we stand, but as a method to go through and live life well. And it seems like the values of the church and the same general values of non-religious, that it looks a lot like church. You know, in that video of the group there in Pittsburgh, it looked like a church picnic.
Yeah.
You know, but philosophically, they were saying we're doing things a little differently. Daniel.
For me, one of the most frustrating parts of my own life is the generation of friends in the Pacific Northwest who worked as hard as they possibly could to blend in and not look like Quakers. Community church, so that we didn't look like anything special. I remember all the talk about we're just Christians, because we wanted to blend in. We didn't want to be unusual. It's precisely the unusual things about our history that bring my classes of largely cynical ex-Catholics, where I teach in Los Angeles, that brings the room to a quiet. When I mention something that's totally shocking to them, I say, in my class, please address me as Daniel, because I come from a tradition that emphasizes equality. And so please don't address me as Professor Doe. That doesn't count for my colleagues, I'll quickly say. But in this class, I invite you to do that. The room falls silent. They've never heard that before. They've from as a religious value to talk about equality. I mean, it's who we are. The fact that we all know our struggles and our difficulties. But we still issued the first document against slavery in 1688. That brings a room to a silent halt. What? There was a religious group that once did this? And it still exists? We went through that whole generation of denying who we were, thinking that that was going to grow our churches. And I don't know, Dwight, if you agree with me, I feel like we still live with the legacy of that generation.
Oh, that's still very much alive in the East Coast, the evangelical friends. You don't say Quaker. Unfortunately.
And that is not, in my personal opinion, my family, Reedwood family, that is not what Portland wants. Portland wants to hear about people that were different.
That's right. It's, Quakers have been keeping church weird since 1652. However, there is there's a danger in that, and I saw that in England, which is that the Church of England, all over, every church, and there are lots of, it was more come to us, you were a heavy burden. If you're lonely, this is how you pray. If you're struggling, if you're grieving, this is what you do. You know, we have resources for you. Come to us. Whereas the Quakers were saying, we're just this wonderful tradition. We're better than the rest of you. It wasn't authentic.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. Is we're tempted to say, aren't we great? And that's not an invitation.
Well, that's not
invitational. And we need to be invitational to get people in, but then also help them be part of us, help them belong, help them really to understand and know how things work, how to get a newsletter, all those, where the bathrooms are, all those things. And yeah, we agree on basics, I think.
Yeah, I think so. It's just that when a person says, as that always do, look at all the horrible things that have been done in the name of religion. That's why, and you just feel like saying, brother, there are some exceptions to this. Yeah, and you need to hear them because Jesus was an exception. So I think that pointing out exceptions is critically. I mean, one of the things I most admire about the Mennonites is that they went through what they called the rediscovery of the Anabaptist vision. They re-encountered who they were in the 60s. And it had a huge impact on their movement, a huge impact. Now, it wasn't that they strictly adhered to the old tradition, we can't do anything any other way. No, it's that they just rediscovered a well of tradition that they were not drawing from. And could suddenly, and the water was fresh and cool and energizing.
Thank you, everyone. Well, we're way past time. Thank you for listening. If you have more questions or anything for me, feel free to email me, call me, text me. I would like to continue this conversation, but thank you for your time and attention. Appreciate it.
No, it's that trying to